a lot of people have been put off by the idea of orchestra. Some artists getting older, straps on an orchestra, no thank you, and it feels like they're sort of ready to move into a cabaret or lounge and, just trying to, some veteran respectability or whatever it is. And that was part of the aim with the New Blood title, I think, was to try and say, no, this is not the way we're approaching it. We're really trying to explore things here and see if we can do it differently. And we may not have always succeeded, but it felt there are places on this record where you hear something that you won't have heard before. And that's what's always exciting for me.
Intruders happy in the dark. Intruder come. Intruder come and he leave his mark. Leave his mark. Leave his mark. Leave his mark.
John Metcalfe I came across through a number of different routes. He wasn't afraid of being bold, and I wanted this to be a bold record. We threw away the rock band. Most people when they do orchestral projects keep the rock band and add orchestra, but we took away guitar, we took away bass, took away drum kit, and in a way that meant we were more committed and we had only to use the colours of the palette of the orchestra. When John and I first met, we threw some names around, some obvious English things like Elgar Vaughan Williams, and then Stravinsky, sort of some of the contemporary stuff, systems, things we were talking about, Steve Reich, Philip Glass. But then also with a track like Intruder, we threw Hitchcock around because that was a reference. And I think, some of these pieces were approached filmically, and Bernard Herrmann there, Hitchcock's great composer, arranger, was definitely an influence on the way John put the Intruder arrangement together. I left to one side some of the sort of obvious hits or whatever and went more for the songs that were telling a story or working with textures or mood that seemed to have the raw material that could translate well to orchestra. I think as a singer, you're always going to respond to whatever it is you're hearing at the time. So inevitably, the arrangements are going to change what you do. But these songs have been in my blood for, in some cases, 20 or 30 years. So I sort of knew them backwards. But there was more space, I think, to approach the vocal a little differently.
Don't talk back. Just drive the car. Shut your mouth. Know what you are. Don't say nothing. Keep your hands on the wheel. Don't turn around. This is for real. Digging in the dirt. Stay with me. I need support.
Physically, as you get older, your voice drops a little bit. So I think, I probably lost a tone from the top end and gained it down the bottom. So that was interesting. And a couple of songs we put down a key, down a tone in the key. So that brings out different colors anyway. Leonard Cohen particularly, I think, has got to be a more interesting singer as his voice has deepened. I love that sort of raspy delivery. So I was sort of trying to be conscious of some of that stuff as well, of what I could do with the voice within this context.
As daylight broke, I saw the earth the trees that burn down to the ground.
The most difficult part, I think, of the orchestral project is to get it funky, is to get it, you know, you don't have a natural sort of James Brown rhythm section. You know, it has a certain gravity to it, and you've got to A, nail the arrangement, and B, you know, the conducting and the playing to get it to sort of groove in a way that I'm very used as an ex-drummer to having underlying my songs. One of the most extraordinary things for me working with orchestra was to discover that the conductor is always out of time. He's always ahead of where the beat lies. You know, in any of our sort of music, boof is absolute, you know, but in classical music, the conductor is anticipating the beat.
You have gambled with your own life. You face the night alone, while the builders of the cages sleep with bullets, bars and stone. They do not see the road to freedom that you build with flesh and bone.
You want to give up a big fat bottom when the piece needed it, so we made sure we had the capacity to do that. And obviously with sort of 3 or 4 bass players, you also have a richness there. I mean, one of the things that I love with acoustic instruments is when you play them live together, so you get this beating effect when things are actually a little out of tune with each other, but there's this sort of aliveness that comes out of that. And I mean, that happens naturally, but I think we really wanted to exploit that.
I cannot make a single sound as you scream. It can be that cold, the ground is still warm to touch. Hey, we touch, this place is so quiet, sensing that storm. Red rain is coming down, red rain. Red rain is pouring down all over me.
Originally this was going to be a 3-month filler project, but it's been more complex, but I think richer and paid off more than I had anticipated at first. So I mean, when it first started locking in live, you know, I felt we had to record this and film it, and before I was ready to move on to something else, because it really felt like a door had opened.
Looking for mercy.